Okay, so if you saw my if you saw my episode for the Owl House, you know exactly the situation I'm in. So I'm just like, let's just get right into it. How is everyone doing today, guys? My name is T Codes, and we are back with another episode of Amphibia. This is episode 53A of the series, or episode 13A of season 3. Again, takes a minute. The Mother of Olms. This is a episode that, of course, has been building up for a bit with the vase that we found in fight it in the museum, and then of course we learned that it's like it said, seek the Mother of Olms, she will guide you to your destiny. And so we finally get to see who the Mother of Olms is, and freaking, I'll admit it took me a second to recognize the voice, but once I did recognize the voice, I'm like, wow. And so I'm basically the entire episode is with Anne, Sasha, Hop, Sprig, and Paulo. You know, they're here, they're seeing the Mother of Olms, who is voiced by Whoopi Goldberg, which was such a... I didn't even think about who would possibly voice the Mother of Olms. I was just too intrigued to see what exactly it would be that the Mother of Olms was going to talk about. And so I really thought the majority of this episode would be about like whatever the prophecy was and like them trying to figure out what exactly it is. But no, the majority of this episode is rather... It's kind of like a Fantastic Voyage episode. Like they go inside Mother Olm, because so they go down to where Mother Olm is, and at first it's like, okay, so we need to know about this prophecy about the music box, Andreas, and all that. And so Mother Olm, well, she does drop this. She does say that before I get too deep into the episode, like Mother Olm, she of course sees that it's Anne, Sasha, Hop, Sprig, and Polly, and so she's like, frogs, whoa, there hasn't been a frog here in 1,000 years. So it's like, that's a nice little like hint as to, you know, like the last time a frog was there was 1,000 years. And it's like, was it the frog perhaps? Was it perhaps the frog that was in freaking... And it's like, it's getting interesting. And so, but of course for Sasha and Anne, you know, that's like really the first time that she's even seen a human. So it's like, okay, this is a new species. That's pretty intriguing. Yeah, so, you know, they're like, but like I said, Anne, Sasha, Hop, Sprig, and Polly, you know, I thought the episode would be them focusing on the prophecy. And no, at first it's like, Mother Olm doesn't even remember the prophecy, and I mean it makes sense because she's been living for thousands of years, and like she's like, it getting old sucks, and Hop's like, you said it. And so they're like, well, I mean, if you don't remember the prophecy, how are we gonna help you with that? And she's like, well, I mean, anytime I forgot something, like my doctor would just go into my head and just like rub this memory cream onto my brain to help me remember things. And it's like, okay, that is weird. And so that's exactly what they do. They literally go into her head with this cream to try and like help her remember. And I love Sasha in this episode because she's the leader of the resistance. She has fought she's like creatures, robots. She has literally been through a crazy amount of stuff, and she is just in pure heck when she's going through this freaking Olm's head. Like, she doesn't even want to go in. She's like, I have a thing with ears. And I'm like, when have you had a thing with ears? I'm trying to remember, like, was there an episode where Sasha had a thing with ears? But it's like, she goes, you know, she doesn't even want to be there. Like, she gets covered in earwax. They get electrocuted in the nervous system, which I was like, wait a minute, how did they get there? It's like, there's definitely a lot of crazy, weird things that happen in this episode with Mother Olm, when them inside Mother Olm. All the while, Hop, by the way, is because they were trying to hammer in the joke of like, oh, you're so old, you're worthless, you're not going to be worth anything. Which I'm like, this is like foreshadow. I hate when they do foreshadowing of like possible things that can happen. Like, so many people are like, ooh, is Sasha going to lose an eye? Is Anne going to lose an arm? Is Hop going to die? I'm like, I mean, it's so freaking ridiculous when they just hammer in foreshadowing like that, which I feel like at the end of this isn't even gonna be like stuff that happens. I feel like it's either gonna just working as like a giant joke, or maybe it will happen and it's like, grr. But yeah, so because Hop Pop has kind of been, you know, like as in this episode they say he's old, but I mean in previous episodes he's been pretty alright. He just sits this one out and he just decides to have a conversation with Mother Olm, and so they have a nice little conversation, like Hop Pop, you know, because he's been a farmer for a long time. He knows a lot about farming, and that's like kind of Mother Olm's like, well, yeah, we may be old, but we have wisdom for our years of experience, and so like that's kind of like a nice little connection between the two, and it shows that Mother Olm, you know, she's the Mother of Olms. She seems to be this very wise creature, so of course you would want to show that Hop Pop, the dude, even though he is old, still has something that he can use, and so like I do like that little moment between the two. But like I said, the majority of this episode is Anne, Sasha, Sprig, and Polly inside Mother Olm, trying to restore her memories. And so apparently it turns out when they eventually get inside her brain, they discover that there's like, it's like these, I think they said mosquitoes or something. It's like basically just mosquito flies that are inside Mother Olm's head, and they've apparently been drinking from, like, draining the blood from her brain, so like that is what's been causing the migraines that she's had. And so luckily for Anne, Sasha, Sprig, and Polly, they're able to lure them out while also getting the cream on her brain, but they also get stuck in Mother Olm's nose, and so it's like they're actually going to be drowning in her snot, and so it's like, we gotta get out. How do we get out? And so Hop Pop is able to cause Mother Olm to sneeze, because he finds and locates all of like the important ingredients needed to cause like an allergic reaction, so Mother Olm can sneeze, which was again a nice little moment for Hop Pop to show that he has his knowledge. He does know his stuff. It's just, sure, he's a fragile frog, but he can still do it. I mean, yeah, I still love the moment with Hop Pop, you know, like his knees are literally shaking, and he's like, strengthen up, knees. I love that shot. It's like the knees are shaking, but when he's like strengthen up, they just straighten up, and it's like, yeah, we're doing it. And so yeah, Hop Pop saves the gang and just calls him up by calling Mother Olm to sneeze, and it's just a disgusting shot of them sliding down the stairs covered in snot and mucus. And of course Sasha's just like, worst mission ever. it really was a ridiculous mission for them, and it's like, was it worth it? Because it's like, hey, Mother Olm, how is that working out? And then Mother Olm's like, yeah, the prophecy, I still don't remember. And it's like, really? And then Sprig's like, yeah. I mean, he looks at the cream and he's like, oh, this says it expired 70 years ago? So it's like, what? We did all that for nothing? What? And so, but it's like, well, you couldn't have just forgotten it. Maybe you wrote it down somewhere. And then Mother Olm's like, where did I forget? Oh wait, yeah, I did write it down. It's on the ceiling here. It's like, it's so ridiculous that they did an entire voyage just so Mother Olm could be like, oh, I don't remember the prophecy. I do remember that I wrote it on the ceiling right there that we could have just seen the entire time. It's really just so freaking dumb sometimes, but honestly, that's what I love about this show, is that it can do stuff like that, but it feels justified for the joke. Or, I mean, I say it feels justified for joke. I feel like someone who can see it be like, what the freaking heck? But, so, in terms of the actual prophecy, I completely forgot. I can't recite the prophecy word for word, but basically, it falls along the line of this. The power, it's with, of course, it is about the Calamity Stones, and it's, of course, with Anne, Marcy, and Sasha. It's like, three beings from another world will come with the power of the calamity stones to bring like peace and order back to Amphibia. But it's like whether they fight or fall, their destiny will be the fate of all. Their choice will be the fate of all. It's like basically whatever they do with the calamity powers will determine the fate of Amphibia. And so in this case, it's like it's not really like this. They're not really fighting like a creature like that shows like that in like the scene with like a giant monster. It's more just the monster that Amphibia is created, or in this case, Utopia. It's like with the core, with Andreas' army. It's like basically the thing about the Calamity Stones that Mother Olm talks about is some see it as like just a symbol, is like a symbol, or like just more just like it's too powerful for anyone to wield, so we just leave it alone. But for other people, they see it as like a way to use it for power or conquering and stuff. And so, and Sasha and Marcy, they are just three beings from another world. They use this, they come with the power to bring the peace or lay waste. So basically, by the sounds of it, it's like you're either gonna fight to save the world or you're gonna destroy it. It's like, okay. So, of course, for Anne, it's like, well, I mean, I have my calamity powers, but I can't control it. And then it's like, well, I mean, since you're still connected to the box, that means you can restore the powers to Sasha and Marcy. And it's like, Sasha's like, oh, cool, we're going to get anime powers. I love that. I love that it straight up said it. It's like, yeah, anime. It's like, but yes, so that is basically the game plan now. The game plan is for them to get the calamity box. So, I mean, makes sense. It makes sense to get the Calamity box because, you know, it's like, if they get the box, they can get their powers, and then we'll see just what exactly will happen once they do. Let's see, what else? No, that's actually about it. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, again, there's definitely a few good jokes in this episode, even at the end with, you know, Sasha's like, I'm covered in snot, can I take a shower or something? And then I was like, oh, I got you. It's like, oh god, but then I love Sasha is just like, she screams and like, I want to say pain because I think, because Mother Olm drank tea and was gonna use that, and I love that like you just cut away to like a cave and then you hear Sasha scream and then she's like, oh, is that Jasmine? It's just, I love it when it ends on stuff like just stupid stuff like that. But yeah, no, in terms of like this episode, I mean, of course, it adds stuff to the plot. It, of course, reveals to Anne and Sasha what needs to be done. Like, it's this prophecy of the Calamity Trio. And so it's just a very intriguing prophecy that I am wondering how exactly the prophecy came to be. And, of course, it maybe has something to do with the frog that last came 1,000 years ago. And honestly, in terms of like a theory, it's pretty much like, I feel like in terms, so like we know at one point in time, Andreas had his friends. He had the frog, he had the toad who is Beryl, because I mean, he has, like, I mean, I've seen shots online and it's like, so it's like he has the hammer, so it's like it has to be Beryl. So Beryl, and then whoever this little pink frog is, you know, people are saying it's like a descendant of, it's like an ancestor of Sprig and Polly, so it's like maybe it's like connection to that. So they talked about how, well, this frog took the Calamity box and went to the human world. Why? So it's like, I think with this prophecy, it's this frog must have saw the prophet, and like what, maybe she was worried that Andreas was going down a dark path, and like their thought hidden, like she discovered what exactly was going on in Utopia, and maybe she's like, how do we stop it? She goes to the Mother of Olms. Mother of Olms like forms this prophecy, or maybe or just tells her of the prophecy, and so she's like, okay, so I can't do this. We can't. It's like, it needs to be beings of other worlds. Like, I can't be the one to do it. It has to be someone else. So that's why she probably stole the Calamity box to go to the other world to find the Calamity Trio. And whatever happened to her, we don't know. We just know that the box eventually found its way to Anne, Sasha, and Marcy. And it's like, and of course, that's the Calamity Trio for this case. It's like, that's about what I got for that theory. But I mean, it is a pretty intriguing prophecy. Again, I mean, me wanting to really know like the ins and outs of like how did it form, how did the like what exactly this prophecy can be, and it's like well, I mean, if they used the Calamity Box in the past, like have they traveled to other worlds? It's like Andrew's talking about, like they were world conquerors. This is like, so what exactly does all this mean? And so I am again very intrigued to see what it is. But for now, we're just left with that. We're just left with this episode. And I mean, the next episode adds a little bit, but it's like very little bit because of what the overall focus of the next episode is. So yeah, let's get on into the next episode, shall we?